Namaskar. In this segment, I will do Purva Paksha of multiple Mahabharat researchers in the context of all the astronomy observations of Saturn, Shani, from the Mahabharat text. So let's begin with the specific observations of Saturn from Mahabharata. There are three specific observations of Saturn in the Mahabharata text. The first observation, it appears in the Udyog Parva. Prajapatyam hi nakshatram grahastikshno mahadyuti shanaishchara pidayati pidayan pranikodikam. The nakshatra can be described by its name, such as Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrugashirsha, Ardra, etc. The nakshatra can also be described by its nakshatra devata. In this case, nakshatra Rohini is described by its nakshatra devata, Prajapati. So Prajapatyam hi nakshatram is essentially nakshatra of Prajapati, which is Rohini. And what the shlok is stating is that planet Saturn, Shanishchar, is afflicting nakshatra Rohini. Another observation from Bhishma Parva essentially repeats this phenomenon. The first line is the relevant line. Rohinim pidayannesha stito raja shanishchara. So in this case, nakshatra is identified by its name, Rohini, and it is stating that planet Saturn is afflicting Rohini. Now the good thing about planet Saturn is it is the slowest moving visible planet in our solar system. By visible, I mean visible to the naked eye. So the position of Saturn over a short period of time, and by short I mean say a couple of years, is relatively fixed, relatively stable, because its orbital period is around 30 years. The second line of second shlok is another astronomy observation, but because it has nothing to do with Saturn, we will skip it. Let's go to the second reference of Saturn. So these two shlok constitute first reference. Let's go to the second reference. It appears in Bhishma Parva, and again the second line is important, but I will read both lines. Magaswangarako vakrash shravaneicha brahaspati bhagam nakshatram akramya surya putrena pidate. The first line has two astronomy references related to Mars and Jupiter. We will skip them for now. The second line is saying bhagam nakshatram akramya surya putrena pidate. Nakshatra bhaga, in this case, again it's a nakshatra devata. It refers to nakshatra either Uttara Falguni or Purva Falguni or both. And Surya Putra refers to Saturn or Shani. Number of you may be aware of this shlok in praise of Shani. It goes something like this. I am simply trying to recall from my memory. Nilanjana Samabhasam Ravi Putram Yamagrajam Chaya Martanda Sambhutam Tam Namami Shanishcharam. So in this shlok, Surya Putra or Ravi Putra refers to son of Ravi, son of Surya, and again that refers to Saturn. So what this shlok is saying is Saturn is also afflicting nakshatra bhaga, which means either Uttara Falguni or Purva Falguni. So this is our second reference. And the third reference also appears in Bhishma Parva. Graho tamra runashito prajvalanta vivastito saptarshinam udaranam samavachadya vaiprabham samvatsarasthainaucha graha prajvalito vivo vishakhayo samipastho brahaspati shanishcharo. We will come to the first shlok of this verse another time as we do Purva Paksha of other Mahabharata researchers in the context of astronomy evidence. In general, not specifically restricted to Saturn. For now, I want to focus on the second shlok, which is saying that these two planets, Ubho, these two planets had become steady for about a year, samvatsar, and they were shining brightly, prajvalita. And what was their position? Vishakhayo samipasto. They had settled near Nakshatra Vishakha. And who were these two planets? Brahaspati Shaneshcharo. So Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter and Saturn were shining brightly, had settled near Nakshatra Vishakha for up to a year. That's what the meaning of this shlok is. And these are our three specific references of planet Saturn from the Mahabharata text. Next, I want to show you the framework that I use that provides the context in analyzing any research work or multiple research works. In this case, all the astronomy references of Saturn from the Mahabharata. Let's begin with the framework. We have vertical axis of evidence, horizontal axis of testability, and these two axes allow us to classify any research effort into these four broad categories. If the evidence is testable, the effort lies on the right side of evidence. Now, what distinguishes between dharmic superstar and superficial manipulator is this. Dharmic superstar will take into account all the relevant evidence. He or she will test each piece of evidence and will note down the outcome. On the other hand, superficial manipulator tends to look at an arbitrary set of evidence, a selective set of evidence, typically driven by the fact that that set of evidence seems to corroborate with the proposal or a theory of superficial manipulator. What is the problem with this approach? The problem is it violates one of the key principles of a scientific theory, a scientific investigation and testing, which is that of consistency of a theory. Now, I want you to recognize that any scientific research effort, when all the relevant evidence is tested, it's perfectly normal, although the goal is all the evidence should be corroborated by a theory. It's perfectly normal that not all of it will be corroborated. That's the most likely scenario. And what a researcher should do is list all the evidence and note down which of that evidence was corroborated by the theory and which of the evidence was not corroborated by the theory, as opposed to a typical approach you will see from a superficial manipulator category is to simply avoid the evidence, simply not talk about the evidence that cannot be corroborated for a given theory, or to somehow explain it away. And all of this conflicts with the basic requirement of a scientific investigation, which is the consistency of a theory. There are more than 130 plus different claims by those many different researchers for the timing of Mahabharat war, and out of that more than 50%, more than 60 are based on astronomy evidence. I would like to select some of these efforts, especially well-known efforts, where a researcher has also proposed the first day of Mahabharat war. And we will analyze the position, or rather positions, of Saturn and also Jupiter, and then analyze them in the context of Mahabharata descriptions. Although we are looking at the position of Saturn, I also want to note down the position of Jupiter, because remember, one of the three references refer to positions of Saturn and Jupiter near Nakshatra Vishakha. So let's begin with our first Mahabharat claim. Prabhakar Venkatesh Hole, P.V. Hole, proposed 13 November 3143 BC as the first day of Mahabharat war for his proposal. What you see on the screen is the astronomy simulation for this first day as proposed by Shri Prabhakar Venkatesh Hole. 13 November 3143. The timing is around 4 o'clock in the morning. And what you will notice is on the eastern horizon, Saturn is up and its position is near Nakshatra Vishakha. On the western horizon, Nakshatra Rohini, Aldebaran, is ready to set. And Shri Hole described this as planet Saturn afflicting Nakshatra Rohini. Also note down that planet Saturn is near Nakshatra Vishakha, and if I move this through time, now you will notice Jupiter also rises from the eastern horizon. Position of Jupiter is between Nakshatra Anuradha and Jyeshtha, and thus it is close to Nakshatra Vishakha. It can be considered close to Nakshatra Vishakha, and same is the case with planet Saturn. So, second astronomy reference of Mahabharata text, where Jupiter and Saturn are described as settled near Nakshatra Vishakha for up to a year, can also be corroborated. Now, Shri Hole has not said anything about it, but I am describing it to provide you with an illustration what can constitute a corroboration. Now, Shri Hole did not say anything about the third reference of Saturn, where Saturn is described as afflicting Nakshatra Bhaga, which means either Nakshatra Uttara Falguni or Nakshatra Purva Falguni. Also, this day is that of Amavasya, and as moon and sun come above the horizon, you can see that they are close by here. So this is sun here and this is moon. I just showed this as a demonstration as to how somebody uses an astronomy software to test some of these claims. I did this for this one specific claim of Shri P.V. Hole. I will not show you the astronomy simulation for each of the other claims we are going to analyze, but essentially the method or the process that I used is similar to what I showed you in this scenario. All right, let us summarize findings for the claim of Shri Hole as it relates to astronomy observations of planet Saturn. Tithi was Amavasya. Saturn was near Vishakha. Jupiter was near Nakshatra Anuradha Jyeshtha, so it can also be considered near Vishakha as a visual observation. And Shri Hole described Saturn afflicting Nakshatra Rohini by essentially saying that rising Saturn on the eastern horizon was afflicting setting Rohini on the western horizon. Let us look at another claim for the first day of Mahabharat war, 22nd November 3067 BCE. It was originally proposed by Professor Raghavan in 1969, and in recent time Professor Achar has claimed to have tested this claim, and Professor Achar agrees with it. The first day, Tithi, is that of Shukla 10 or Shukla Dashmi, that is 4-5 days before the day of Purnima, day of full moon. Saturn is near Nakshatra Rohini and Jupiter is near Nakshatra Revati. Out of these three references of Saturn from Mahabharata text, Professor Achar uses the position of Saturn near Nakshatra Rohini as a corroboration of Saturn afflicting Rohini. And it is a good corroboration. All I want you to notice is that another researcher, Sri Hole, had described this Saturn afflicting Rohini by showing their positions at the opposite ends of the sky. I just want you to be aware that same astronomy reference can be or might be corroborated by different researchers in a different fashion. The remaining two references of Saturn, Professor Achar rather proposes an interesting theory. He states that this description of Saturn and Jupiter and actually many other planets, the entire astronomy evidence from the third Adhyaya of Bhishma Purva, in his opinion, these are not descriptions of planets at all, but rather they are comets with names such as Brihaspati, Shaneshchar, Shukra, Buddha, Somaputra, Angarak, etc. Unfortunately, he did not bother to test his theory. And if we try to test it with available information that we have on 200 plus comets, we do not find any comet showing up anywhere for this date or during this year of 3067 BCE. So that is that. Let's move on to the next claim for the first day of Mahabharat war. 8th November 2585 BCE, and this is by Venkatesh Bapuji Ketkar. He was a school teacher and also an astronomer par excellence. He had predicted that there are possibly two planets beyond Neptune. Not only he predicted that there are possibly two planets, but he had predicted their distance from the Sun as well as their orbital period. Now he did this before actually Pluto was found, and interestingly, his prediction for the distance of one of these two planets as well as the orbital period matches very well with Pluto. With that small digression, I'll get back to references of Saturn from the Mahabharata text. The Tithi for this day is Shukla 14, that is Shukla Chaturdashi, one day before the full moon day. Saturn is near Nakshatra Chitra and Swati. Jupiter is near Nakshatra Mura. And since I have not seen his original work, I don't know if he corroborated any of these references or how he did it. I'm simply going to state that Saturn can be seen as afflicting Rohini in a similar fashion described by Sri Hole. And also if you look at the positions of Saturn and Jupiter, so Saturn is near Chitra and Swati, which is close to Vishakha on one side, and Jupiter is near Mula. In fact, it was between Jyeshtha and Mula, so that was on the other side of Vishakha. So as a visual observation, one may also say that the positions of Saturn and Jupiter do corroborate another astronomy observation of Saturn and Jupiter near Nakshatra Vishakha. If you realize that these are very cyclical phenomena, Saturn will complete one round in its orbit in 30 years, Jupiter would do the same in about 12 years, and thus it's possible to see these combinations occurring multiple times. Let's move on to the next claim. First day of the Mahabharat war, 4 November 2449 BCE. This was by Professor Sengupta. Tithi for this first day is Shukla 14, Shukla Chaturdashi, that is around the full moon day or day before full moon day. Saturn is near Nakshatra Rohini. Jupiter is near Nakshatra Kritika. And while Sengupta uses this position of Saturn near Rohini to claim, rightfully so, the corroboration of Saturn afflicting Rohini, he is silent on all the astronomy observations, and there are a lot of them, in Adhyay 3 of Bhishma Purva. He avoids interpreting all the other observations of Saturn, other observations of other planets, and somehow explains it away. In any case, let's move on to the next claim for the first day of Mahabharat war, 31st October 2156 BCE by Professor Ananda Sharan. The tithi is that of Shukla 10, Shukla Dashmi, that is again 4 or 5 days before the full moon day. Saturn is near Nakshatra Revati and Ashwini, so not near Nakshatra Rohini. Jupiter is near Nakshatra Shravan. Now this is a good thing for another astronomy reference of Jupiter, but we are looking at only references related to planet Saturn right now, so we will not go there. And so, well, we don't know what to comment. Professor Anand Sharan himself has not stated anything in the context of these specific 3 observations of Saturn, or for that matter any other planet. And I will encourage you to read his paper in the original. If you go to Google and type his name, you should be able to download his paper on the Mahabharat war, and I would encourage you to reach your own conclusions. Another claim for the first day of Mahabharat war, 17 October 1952 BCE. This is by Professor Mohan Gupta. The tithi is that of Amavasya. Saturn is near Nakshatra Purva Bhadrapada. Jupiter is near Nakshatra Revati. And to the best of my knowledge, Professor Mohan Gupta hasn't commented in any fashion about these 3 observations of Saturn from the Mahabharata text. I do remember that similar to Professor Achar, Professor Mohan Gupta also proposed this theory of comets for all the planetary observations of 3rd Adhyay of Bhishma Purva. Anyways, again, he did not bother to test them. If we try to test it for year 1952 with the available knowledge of 200 plus comets that are known to us, we do not find any corroboration whatsoever. Let's go to the last claim that we would analyze. For the year 1478 BC by Professor R.N. Iyengar. Now, I saw this date of 26th October somewhere as the first day of Mahabharat war, apparently proposed by him. But when I did email correspondence with him, specifically asking for his claim for the first day of Mahabharat war, he did not respond. So I do not know if this was indeed the first day proposed by him or if there was something else. In any case, again, remember, Saturn moves very slowly. It's going to be essentially in same place over a short period of time, and by short period of time I mean 1 to 2 to 3 years. So it does not affect our analysis. Tithi was that of Amavasya, obviously assuming 26th October as the first day. Saturn was near Nakshatra Bharani. So Bharani, Kritika, Rohini. So close to Rohini but not at Rohini. And Jupiter was near Nakshatra Uttarabhadrapada. And again, I would encourage you to download his research papers on the timing of Mahabharat war and reach your own conclusions. As far as references of Saturn are concerned, he is silent. He has not said a word, and that is that. To summarize, we analyzed 7 specific claims by 7 different researchers for the timing of Mahabharat war in the context of all the astronomy evidence related to planet Saturn, and there were 3 specific references to planet Saturn in this Mahabharata text. Overall, I can say, based on the specific 7 cases I described here, but also 50 plus other cases that I have analyzed before, majority of Mahabharata researchers simply show ignorance for the existence of these astronomy references of Saturn. Some of them do show awareness of one of the 3 references of Saturn, namely planet Saturn afflicting Nakshatra Rohini. Those few researchers who do refer to this Saturn evidence either tend to explain away the remaining observations of planet Saturn. Some of them have proposed interesting theories, such as theory of comets, that these are not actually planets with a name Shani or Brahaspati or Angarak or Buddha or Shukra, but rather they are comets. Now that's interesting theory. After that, they did not bother to do anything about it, never mind testing. If we try to test it, obviously we are not going to find a comet with these names, but at a minimum, is there a comet for their proposed date near these nakshatras mentioned in the Mahabharata text? We find no evidence whatsoever for either of these claims, and I'm referring to claim of Professor Achar and also similar claim of Professor Mohan Gupta. So in short, that is the summary, Purva Paksha, of Mahabharata researchers in the context of astronomy evidence of planet Saturn.